Reincarnated with the strongest system. Chapter 271, A Night in Valhalla. The sound of birds singing and water flowing from a small fountain reached William's ears as he found himself in an unfamiliar place. He didn't know how or when it happened, but he was now half submerged in what seemed to be a pool filled to the brim with spring water. The water was so clear that he could see the bottom without any problems. William scanned his surroundings to get an idea of where he was, but what he saw made his eyes widen in shock. A vast and beautiful valley, that was dyed in the red and yellow colors of autumn, appeared in front of his eyes. Several women with a pair of white wings behind their backs flew in the distance. They were wearing a type of armor that reminded William of the Valkyries in the games that he had played back on Earth. It was late in the afternoon and the sun was slowly descending in the west. He estimated that it was only an hour or two away from sunset. It didn't take long for him to realize that he was bathing in a pool that was on top of what seemed to be a mountain that overlooked everything around him. It felt so surreal, and luxurious, that the red-headed boy didn't know what to think. "Aren't you finished bathing yet, husband?" A bold voice filled with eager expectation sounded behind him. When William turned his head to look, he found himself staring at a beautiful lady who seemed to be in her early 20s looking at him with a satisfied smile. Her long blonde hair rested on her waist, while a pair of light blue eyes looked at him as if she was looking at the love of her life. The 4 pairs of wings behind her back flapped softly as she landed on the ground. William looked at the lady in front of him and recognized her instantly. Although she was a bit older, taller, and more curvy, there was no doubt in his mind that the girl he was staring at was his girlfriend, Wendy. Like the Valkyries he had seen earlier, Wendy was also wearing a set of revealing lightweight armor that made William wonder if it really offered any kind of protection. "What's wrong? Haven't you finished bathing?" Wendy inquired as she moved closer. "Ah. Maybe you are waiting for me to finish my duties, so that I can join you? As expected of my beloved. You really do love me." William didn't know how to react because things were happening way too fast for him to process. Before he could even reply to the lady in front of him, the latter had already removed her armor and waded into the pool towards him. Wendy?" William inquired. "You're Wendy, right?" "Of course, I'm Wendy." Wendy frowned. "What's wrong? Do you not even recognize your own wife?" Wendy had already arrived beside William and playfully caressed his chest. The moment her soft, delicate hands touched his skin, a surge of electric current passed through William's body. That was when he realized that there were a few things about his body that were different. He was a head taller than the lady in front of him, and his body was more muscular compared to his 14-year-old self. William grabbed his hair and found it long enough to rest on his shoulder. The surprising part about this was that the color of his hair was silver. He tried to reel in the surprise and confusion he was feeling and decided to ask the beautiful lady some questions. "Wendy, where are we?" William asked as he stopped Wendy's flirtatious hand from moving downwards. "Where are Priscilla, EST, and the others?" The air suddenly became tense as Wendy narrowed gaze. "Who is this Priscilla, EST, and the others you are talking about? Are you having an affair with the other Valkyries behind my back?" Wendy released a powerful pressure that descended on William like a mountain. The expression of the beautiful young lady suddenly changed into a warrior princess who had just caught her husband cheating on her. "Hey, why aren't you answering my questions?" Wendy asked as her hand gripped William's wrist. The sound of something breaking and the pain that followed after made the silver-haired young man wince in pain. Seeing his pained expression, Wendy immediately released her hold on his wrist and the tense atmosphere disappeared completely. Sorry," Wendy apologized as she cradled William's injured hand. "You know that I'm a very jealous person. You should know better than to mention the names of other girls in my presence." She then took out a small slice of apple from out of nowhere and made William eat it. "This apple came from the golden apples of the goddess Idun," Wendy explained. "It will heal most injuries, and we usually only use it when we are injured in battle. I only have 3 more slices, so you'd better not hurt yourself, okay?" William wanted to say that the one who hurt him was her, but he knew better than to argue with the lady who looked like the grown-up version of Wendy, but with a more brutal personality. A few seconds after eating the sliced apple, William's injury was healed completely. He moved his hand and arm and deemed that everything was working properly. Wendy simply watched from the side as if she was amused by William's actions. You said I am your husband, when did we get married? William inquired. He needed to get more information about his wife and this world that felt familiar to him. Has your head injury still not fully recovered? Wendy asked back. The healers said that some of your memories might have been affected because of your injury, but I didn't know that it was this serious. Wendy suddenly became anxious as she cupped William's face. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to control my strength and pushed you away during our wedding night. I didn't expect that it would hurt so much after you put your... Wendy gulped as she lowered her head to look at the little William that was currently poking her belly. William was secretly admonishing his little guy for getting excited without his permission. Even so, he kept a calm expression as he listened to Wendy's explanation. I knew you were a true warrior when I brought your soul back from the battlefield. But, I never expected that you would be very manly down there as well. Wendy blushed as she averted her gaze. We only got married 3 days ago, but because of your injury, I had no choice but to wait until you were fully healed to continue the consummation of our marriage. My senior said that since we have done it once already, it shouldn't hurt as much when we do it the second time. Don't worry, they gave me ropes that can withstand the strength of a Valkyrie. You can tie me up later, so I won't be able to hurt you again. William did his best to prevent his lips from twitching after hearing Wendy's explanation. He was still finding it hard to match the crude and bold lady in front of him from the delicate and straightforward girl who would instantly blush the moment he smiled at her. So, we got married 3 days ago, but when I jammed it in during our honeymoon, she got hurt and gave me a serious head injury, William thought as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. She also managed to acquire ropes so that I could tie her up to prevent me from getting hurt again. I didn't know that I'd be able to experience bondage play for the first time in my life in a dream. William looked at his wife and pulled her close to him. He then brushed her long, silky, blonde hair as he organized his thoughts. Wendy, on the other hand, closed her eyes and wrapped her arms around William's back. Their bodies pressed against each other, as the light of the sunset slowly disappeared on the horizon. Half an hour later, Wendy flew in the air holding William in a princess carry. She headed towards a residence that was located on the cliff of the mountain. The two of them had a light dinner and then the ever-excited wife half-dragged William towards the bedroom. Although William had no experience on how the deed was done, he had watched enough age to understand the basics, not to mention, a certain old man that specialized in stamina training taught him the tricks on how to make ladies feel good. I didn't think that Owen's 444 love-making techniques would be used in a dream, William mused as he tied the beautiful lady up, according to her wishes. Although he still didn't understand why he had suddenly appeared in Valhalla, he decided to go with the flow for now. After tying Wendy's arms and legs to the four corners of the bed, he kissed her forehead before looking straight into her eyes. Are you sure you want to do this? William asked. You can still say no, and I will untie you right away. You are my husband and I am your wife, Wendy answered. I had to fight the other Valkyries to call dibs on you first, you know? It's your fault for standing out too much. Will, I have been waiting for this day for months. Don't make me wait any longer, please. Seeing Wendy's pleading gaze, William finally let go of all inhibitions and kissed her lips passionately. He then moved downwards to kiss her neck, her collarbone, and the two majestic peaks that stood proudly on her chest. William did his best to control his emotions and did his best to be gentle. At first, he thought that everything he was seeing was just a dream. But the pain he had felt when Wendy crushed his wrist was so real that he was finding it hard to treat everything like an illusion. Wendy's sighs of pleasure reverberated in the room and it made William breath ragged. He was only caressing her body, and yet, Wendy was already driving him crazy with her seductive voice filled with pleasure. In the end, he was unable to resist the urge and gave in to his instinct. He gently spread Wendy's legs as he prepared to finish what he had started. William gave her one last kiss on the lips before he lowered his hips and... Chapter 272, I can't believe we did 30 rounds. When William opened his eyes, something golden appeared in his line of sight. Soon, the sound of a soft and steady breath of a sleeper reached his ears. He was still not fully awake, but he did recognize the girl that was within his embrace. It was at that moment when images of passionate love-making filled his head. William's body stiffened and all the drowsiness that was still lingering in his body disappeared completely. Slowly, but surely, William disentangled himself from the blonde beauty in his embrace. He then looked at Wendy with a serious expression and noticed a few things that made him sigh in relief. It was just a dream, William thought as he patted his chest in relief. Wendy was still wearing her school uniform, and her youthful face showed that she was still in her early teens. The red-headed boy wasn't able to stop himself from comparing the young and beautiful Wendy to the curvaceous adult Wendy in his dreams. In a few years, she will definitely make the heads of every man turn towards her, William mused as he brushed away the lock of hair that had fallen over her sleeping face. He had turned the protection of his dormitory room to its highest setting, which made it impossible for anyone to leave the room without his permission. William still remembered Carter's order to Wendy to meet him last night, so the half-elf locked her inside his room to prevent her from sneaking off towards the professor's residence. Although the system had said that the spell had been completely wiped away from her sea of consciousness, William didn't want to take any chances and took the matter into his own hands. He then asked the system to do one final check on Wendy's body to see if there were any anomalies. Host, all the parameters on Wendy's body and sea of consciousness are all normal. There are no side effects from the Mind Weaver spell and there is no chance for it to work on her in the future. Good. Thank you. You're welcome. After the system had made its report, William once again looked at the girl who was sleeping peacefully on his bed. Once again, he was reminded of the love-making that he had done with the adult Wendy in his dreams. I can't believe we did 30 rounds, William covered his face that had turned red from embarrassment. This won't do. I need to cool myself down. The half-elf left the bed and headed straight into the bathroom. For some reason, he could still feel the lingering warmth of Wendy's body and it was making his own body heat up. William was a healthy 14-year-old boy. Having that kind of dream, and waking to see himself embracing a beauty in his arms, it was impossible not to have any kind of reaction. Little William was already rearing his head as if he was prepared to fight for another 30 rounds. William didn't know if he should laugh or cry that his dependable junior had awoken its eagerness for a night battle. Soon, the sound of running water could be heard from the bathroom as William soaked his body with cold water. He hoped that it would be enough to drive away the sudden heat that had awakened inside of him after ascending the steps of adulthood inside his dream. Wendy slowly opened her eyes the moment William entered the bathroom. It didn't take long before her entire face turned a shade of red as she recalled the dream she had. In her dream, she watched as her adult self and the silver-haired William made love to each other. I can't believe they did it 30 times, Wendy thought as she rolled on top of the bed. It was her first time seeing the actual deed and it made her face blush in shame and embarrassment. After rolling for a few more times on top of the bed, the blonde beauty hugged William's pillow and wondered if the boy she liked would be able to accomplish the same feat that the silver-haired William had done in her dreams. She knew that William had no intention of doing those things to her at this point in time because they were still too young, but her heart wouldn't stop beating wildly inside her chest. Wendy didn't want to admit it, but she felt envious of the adult Wendy in her dreams. She looked so satisfied afterwards, Wendy thought with a reddened face. I wonder if I'll have the same face after Will finally decides to embrace me. Inside Carter's room. Carter was finalizing the plan he had concocted after realizing the limitless potential that was hidden in William's body. His desire to obtain this new vessel made it become his top priority. After taking control of the Knight Commander's body, he would marry Wendy, Charlotte, Annie, and 2 more noble ladies in the Hellan kingdom and build his influence. He would stage an act on the day of the inter-division battle where he would die under the Knight Commander's hand. Carter needed to do this in order to fool the demon general that was his superior. He would then take his time to train his new abilities, as well as his bride's, and slowly chip away at the power of the king of the Hellan kingdom through schemes and deceit. Afterwards, he would stage a civil war, and crown himself the new king. Carter believed that it would only take him 10 years at most to put this new plan into motion. By then, he would have mastered the powers in William's body and taken over the entire southern continent. By then, he would no longer need to take orders from anyone. He would be the supreme ruler of the entire continent and everyone would bow under his feet. A few hours ago, he felt that the control he had over Wendy disappeared completely. It surprised him at first, but he soon accepted this outcome. For someone that had God essence inside his body, it was very possible for him to erase the spell that had been planted within Wendy's sea of consciousness. This discovery didn't make Carter feel anxious. There was no way for anyone to know that the spell originated from him. He had ensured that the spell couldn't be traced back to him. This was why he was confident that William wouldn't become suspicious of him. After his connection to Wendy was cut, Carter immediately formulated a new set of plans in his head. Although he would have to do it in a roundabout manner, he was confident that he would succeed in luring William to his location. He had many pawns in his hands, so he was not worried that he would run out of subordinates to carry out his orders. First, he would conduct a massacre in order to create a diversion. Then he would lure the boy to a safe location and deal with him there. He had done this countless times in the past, and he was confident that he would succeed this time as well. He had taken over the bodies of individuals far stronger than William, but he had never taken over a body with a god essence inside it. The thrill of conquest made him feel anxious and excited at the same time. Anxious because he didn't know what to expect, and excited because he was confident that even though there were unknown factors, he was still confident that he would be able to take over William's body using the methods he had developed over the years. William von Ainsworth, Carter thought. His eyes glinted in delight for the future that was laid out for him. Enjoy the last few days you have in this world. For they will soon come to an end. He was confident that with the preparations he had planned, William's body was already as good as his. Chapter 273, I knew that following him was not a mistake. Gained EXP points, 1000. Gained EXP points, 1000. Gained EXP points, 1000. Gained EXP points, 1000. William sat in a meditative position inside a spacious cavern at the Thousand Beast domain. This is where he had deposited the magic crystal cavern that he had acquired in the Kirinter Mountains, during their special mission. Not far from him, Dia, Thor, and Ragnar lay in a special nest where they slept peacefully. They were still in the midst of their hibernating period. The system told William that letting the 3 kids stay inside the magic crystal cavern would greatly help them with their growth. Since that was the case, William decided to let the 3 rest inside the cavern for the remainder of their hibernation. The other beasts within the domain also didn't want to miss out on this and gathered inside the cavern as well. The Kasaganaga, Fenrir, and the troll hounds, the blood eagle, Cercops monkeys, as well as the Ingrae birds were all inside the cavern to strengthen their bodies. All of them were magical beasts, so having a steady source of magic power was beneficial for all of them. Ella laid beside the nest of the 3 kids and looked at them with gentle eyes. She hoped that Dia, Thor, and Ragnar would soon awaken from their slumber and aid William in his undertakings. With the help of the magic crystals and the 3 centennial ants that it had eaten, the Kasaganaga's rank has increased to a Class B beast. It was currently the strongest creature that resided inside the Thousand Beast domain, followed by Fenrir and the Blood Eagle, Skadaray, who both became Class C beasts not long ago. The troll hounds, Ingrae birds, and the Cercops monkeys, had also increased their ranks to the middle stages of Class D beasts. William was very satisfied with the rapid growth of his small legion that would become his main fighting force, aside from his night order. Every time the half-elf visited the Thousand Beast domain to check on the kids, and his legion, he had spent an hour or two absorbing the magic essence in the air, to increase the level of his Ice Wizard job class. Gained EXP points, 1000. Gained EXP points, 1000. Gained EXP points, 1000. When he was inside the cavern, he would gain 1000 experience points every 5 minutes. With such an ideal place to cultivate, William wished that he could stay there for a long time. Sadly, he was too busy and could only stay for a few hours inside the domain every day. After exactly an hour, William stood up and left the cavern. Like always, he visited the different places inside his domain and consulted with the system about possible add-ons they could include after they gained more God points. Suddenly, William's body trembled and a searing pain spread across his chest. The pain was so intense that William felt that his chest was being ripped apart by an invisible force. "System, what is happening?" William asked through gritted teeth. "Host, the seal on your magic powers is about to break. The pain you are feeling right now is due to the re-emergence of the magical power that had been suppressed for the last 5 years." William's eyes widened in shock when he heard the system's reply. Soon, the surprise was replaced by happiness, but the pain he was currently experiencing made it hard for him to laugh out loud. It was then when realized that the seal on his powers broke a few weeks earlier than he initially estimated. When he asked the system about this matter, the latter told him that it was due to the absorption of the dark energy from the twin dungeon cores, which sped up the seal's duration. As if waiting for that exact moment, a powerful shockwave pulsed around the half-elf as the shackles that bound his magic powers broke one by one. The ground froze solid and ice spikes protruded out from the ground as William's first magic-based job class, Ice Wizard, resurfaced. A blizzard suddenly appeared out of nowhere, covering his surroundings in a snowy haze. The sky of the Thousand Beast domain darkened as thick storm clouds covered the sun. Dark energy oozed out from William's body as the chains binding his dark magic broke apart as well. Thunder rumbled and lightning snaked across the heavens. Some lightning bolts descended into the dark blizzard that was rampaging on the ground. A few seconds later, a terrifying tornado of ice, darkness, and lightning spiraled towards the heavens. Kasaganaga opened its eyes after sensing the disturbance within the domain. It hurriedly ran outside the cavern to investigate when a white blur streaked past it. Ella had also felt that something was happening to William, so she decided to temporarily leave her wards as she went out to check on his condition. The other creatures, except the 3 hibernating beasts, also rushed out of the cavern to see what was going on. When they saw the giant tornado in the distance, they instinctively knew that William was at the center of it all. This! The Kasaganaga's mouth dropped open as it sensed the overwhelming magic power that was congregating in the location of the dark tornado. As a demigod, it had seen many things in its long life, but it had never seen someone wield so many powers inside their body. Aside from the prevalent ice, darkness, and lightning magic, Kasaganaga also felt several powers which belonged to fire, wind, earth, and water. What was surprising was that it also felt that there were other powers in the mix that were almost too subtle to notice. Can a half-elf really wield all of these powers inside his body? The Kasaganaga thought as it tried to understand what it was currently seeing. No. Even those bastard elves could only wield 3 kinds of powers at most, and they were among the races that are proficient in wielding magic and spirit powers. The deity of the sky shot down its initial assessment because William's current state was something that it had seen for the first time. After their talk during the battle at the Kirinter Mountains, the Kasaganaga understood that William wanted to visit the Silver Moon continent to see his mother and also find a way to save his father. Because of this, the two had come to an understanding that they were not enemies and could even cooperate with each other in order to return Kasaganaga to its former glory. This is also a good thing, the Kasaganaga mused. Currently, I don't have the power to drown those long-eared bastards to oblivion. However, having a strong ally would help me get stronger as well. While the Kasaganaga was deep in its thoughts, the denizens of the Thousand Beast domain looked at their master with awe and admiration. I knew that following him was not a mistake. Fenrir, the leader of the Trollhounds, looked at the violent tornado with happiness. After it received William's blessing, it became smarter and stronger than the average Trollhounds. After it hit rank C, it unlocked the ability to communicate with William and the other members of his King's Legion via telepathy. Fenrir glanced at the other Trollhounds. Sensing their leader's gaze, the Trollhounds looked back at Fenrir with undisguised happiness. "Grow strong, my brothers." Fenrir gave a low growl. "Someday, our master will need our strength. We mustn't disappoint him." The Trollhounds howled in unison in reply to Fenrir's words. All of them vowed that they would become strong in order to fight by their leaders and master's side whenever their aid was needed. The Circops monkeys, who were usually rowdy, had quieted down. The same could be said for the Ingrae birds who liked to curse at others. Scotteray, the blood eagle, perched on top of the Hyperion tree as its bloody eyes locked onto the half-elf that was at the center of the tornado. Unlike the others, it was a creature that could see past through most things and focus its gaze on anything that had blood in it. William had promised it that he would supply it with beasts to eat in order for it to become stronger. So far, it had only preyed upon the goblins inside the goblin crypt. To be honest, it was growing tired of eating goblins. It hoped that in the future, William would be able to let it eat its fill of stronger and more powerful monsters outside the Thousand Beast domain. Half an hour later, the unprecedented phenomenon had ended. William stood with his eyes closed as orbs of power made up of ice, darkness, lightning, fire, wind, earth, and water, circled around his body. A ray of light fell from the sky, as the dark clouds parted. The golden radiance of the sun joined the other elements as they moved around William's body as if they were dancing. It was as if they were celebrating that they had regained their freedom and could once again aid the half-elf in the battles that he was about to face in the future. William opened his eyes as the flow of magic power circulated inside his body. "Glacial Lance," William said softly. Although he could summon the lance with just a thought, he decided to voice it out loud in order to declare that he was once again able to use his magic powers. With a thought he shot it towards the sky, leaving a trail of white mist as it ascended into the heavens. William threw several more glacial lances in rapid succession as he once again tested the extent of his powers. The red-headed boy then bought a giant solid boulder from the god shop that cost 1 god point. He planned to use it for target practice to test his other powers. William pointed his finger at the boulder as his hand imitated that of a gun. Bang! William shouted as he shot a void arrow at the giant boulder. Although this skill's main purpose was to blind its target, it also dealt a bit of dark magic, making it a nice alternative to deal both status and damage to William's enemies. The black arrow hit the boulder and small shrapnels of rock burst from its body. Feeling like a child again, William fired void arrows using both hands like a gunslinger in one of the movies that he watched when he was still back on Earth. Seeing his playful attitude, the Kasaganaga decided to join in on the fun as it curled up into a ball and charged towards William's direction. Soon, the two engaged in a mock battle, sending spells flying in all directions. Ella shook her head as she watched the two children play their hearts out while they cursed at each other. It had been a while since she last saw William this happy. She hoped, more than anything else in the world, that the half-elf would continue to smile for more years to come. Chapter 274, The Meaning of Discretion. After having a fun spar with Kasaganaga, William exited the Thousand Beast domain. Ironically, the moment he left the domain, Wendy knocked on the door after finishing her morning lessons to ask him if he wanted to have lunch with her. William happily agreed to Wendy's proposal and went to the usual spot where they would always have a picnic together. When they arrived at their destination, EST and the twins were already there and had already spread out the food on the picnic blanket. "The lovebirds have finally arrived," EST said in a sarcastic manner. "Ian, prepare the melon seeds. I heard that half-elves love them." William smiled and sat down in front of EST, while Wendy sat beside him. "I do love melon seeds. Ian, Do you have some? My seeds are too good for you. Better find someone else's, Ian replied with a snort. Wendy lightly patted William's shoulder and whispered, I'll buy you some later. I didn't know you liked them. Thank you, William replied as he unconsciously kissed her forehead. EST and Ian stiffened because the half-elf didn't even try to hide their PDA in front of them. Isaac, who was watching from the side, lit a candle in his heart. He prayed for the half-elf's swift and painless death after his young master and twin brother had their way with him. The two of you should just get a room, EST said with a fed-up expression. Aren't you afraid that lightning will strike you down for acting lovey-dovey like this in public? For some reason, he couldn't stop the irritation that was slowly surfacing in his heart, from showing. William, on the other hand, smirked. He was not afraid of lightning falling down from the heavens. After all, his job class Prince of Thunder was not just for show. Calm down and cool yourself down. William grabbed the jug of fruit juice with a mischievous grin plastered on his face. Here, let me help you. Suddenly, the exterior of the jug was covered with a thin layer of ice. EST's, Ian's, Isaac's, and Wendy's eyes widened in shock as they looked at the frozen jug before shifting their attention to William. You recovered your magic power? EST inquired with a serious expression on his face. When did it return? To be honest, EST felt very guilty for the sacrifice that William had made in the trial of courage. He had long wanted to find a way to repay the half-elf for helping him clear the trial. His initial thoughts were to have him knighted and added to the Knight Order of Gladiolus. However, never in his wildest dreams did he consider that the half-elf would found his own Knight Order that was recognized by the king. Just an hour ago, William replied. It's quite unfortunate that I can't use it in the inter-division battles. I bet everyone's jaws would drop off if I start shooting ice shards in the middle of the fight. Wendy frowned as a sudden realization came to her mind. Since you have your magic back, shouldn't you be in the magic division as well? How about you tell the professors about a transfer? I'm sure Professor Layla would be extremely happy to have you. After their relationship had become more serious, William had also told her the story of how his powers were sealed. Back then, Wendy felt sad because if William hadn't lost his powers, he would be in the magic division with her. That's right. Ian seconded Wendy's claim. It is only right for you to be in the magic division since you have regained your powers. EST, however, shook his head. Although he could do that, he won't. Isn't that right, Will? William nodded to acknowledge EST's words. I will stay in the martial division, William replied. At least, until this school year ends. I still have a lot of things to do, and leaving the martial division at this time will lower their morale. I can't do that. Everyone quieted down after hearing William's reply. They knew about William's responsibility as the commander of the Anglo-Ryan War Sovereign. Right now, the half-elf was the pride of the martial division. If he suddenly switched to the magic division, they would be devastated. Let's not worry about this for now. William cleared his throat to change the topic. For now, you should just focus on thinking of ways to beat our lineup. Mind you, even if all the big shots among the first years were to band together, you guys won't get an easy win. Don't worry, EST commented in a calm manner. I'll make sure to beat you up in the arena. Oh, you sound confident. I wonder where that confidence of yours is coming from. Just you wait. I'll wipe that smug smile on your face and win the bet we have agreed upon. Wendy, who was eating from the side, raised her head to observe William's and EST's banter. Deep in her heart, she thanked the gods that EST was born as a boy. Her boyfriend and her head prefect get along so well that it would often make her jealous. Fortunately, head prefect is not a girl, Wendy thought. If he was, he would be a more dangerous love rival than Rebecca. After eating their lunch, Wendy, EST, and the twins returned to the magic division for their afternoon classes. The half-elf had already decided to skip classes for the day because he had more important things to do. I just hope he will believe me, William muttered as he walked towards the dean's office. Since the issue with Carter concerned the entire school, it would be appropriate to let Simon know about it before it was too late. Tell me, William, how did you come to know this information? Simon inquired. The elf looked at the red-headed boy with a serious expression. They were currently inside the dean's office and a powerful enchantment had been put in place to prevent eavesdroppers from getting wind of their conversation. I can't tell you how I got the information, William replied with a calm expression on his face. However, I can guarantee that this information is credible. Really? Simon narrowed his eyes as he stared at the youngest knight commander of the Hellan kingdom. Let me get this straight. You're saying that a professor is subtly taking control of the students inside the academy through the use of candies? Yes. Do you have any proof? I brought some candies with me, William said as he placed the pouch of candies that he had confiscated from Wendy on top of the table. Please, check them yourself, sir. Simon nodded and opened the pouch. He then took one candy from it and used his spirit power to give it a closer inspection. A minute later, the elf returned the candy inside the pouch and nodded his head. You're right, Simon commented. There is indeed a strand of spirit power embedded inside it. If not for my strong spiritual sense, I would have not discovered it. What are you going to do, sir? William asked. If this continues, I am afraid that more of the students might fall prey to this dangerous scheme. Simon took the candy pouch and stored it inside his storage ring. He then looked at William in contemplation as if weighing the words that he wanted to say. Rest assured, I will take precautions to handle this matter, Simon stated. For now, I want you to keep this secret to yourself in order to not alarm the mastermind behind this candy incident. Not a word to anyone, do you understand? We should be ready for the possibility that the professor doing this behind the scenes is able to tap into the memories of the people under their control. If word of this spreads, then our chances of capturing the mastermind will disappear completely. Who knows? He might also have acquaintances hiding in the background. For now, act as if nothing is wrong. Also, there's no need for you to look for me again if you discover something else. I have my own ways of monitoring the people inside my own backyard. William nodded his head. He felt a little relieved that Simon took his words seriously. In the beginning, he was afraid that the dean of the academy wouldn't believe him and might even accuse him of spreading fake news. Fortunately, that was not the case and William left the dean's office feeling slightly better. With Simon's help, he was confident that they would be able to catch all those who were involved with Carter if the two of them worked together. A few minutes after William left the room, Simon sighed and knocked on the top of his table. You can come out now, Simon said. It seems that your young master is very able. To think that he managed to know about this scheme without any of you telling him is quite a feat. A black mist gathered in the center of the room. Soon, a man wearing a hooded black robe materialized in front of the dean of the academy. So far, everything is in order, Ezio replied. While the commander feels a little guilty in not telling young Master Matthew and young Master William about the details of our operation, it is for their own good. Also, it limits the person in the know, which would prevent the leakage in information. Are you sure that William will not tell anyone else about his discovery? He won't. The fact that he came to you with this secret is because he also understands the meaning of discretion. So, for his sake, and the sake of all the students in the academy, we mustn't fail. Failure is not an option, you also understand this, right? Simon sighed before nodding his head. In fact, he knew that Carter was only a pawn behind the candy incident, which was something that William was not aware of. Although the academy looked peaceful on the surface, there were many things being done behind the scenes in preparation for the battle that was about to come. Chapter 275, Will he be able to resist my charm? William was like an overprotective boyfriend as he accompanied Wendy wherever she went. This caused the rumors about the two of them to spread to the other divisions and it made Wendy secretly happy. How could she not be happy? She could still remember the passionate words that William told her a day ago, which made her feel like she was on cloud nine. "Wendy, will you be my girlfriend?" William asked. "Yes," Wendy replied in a heartbeat. She was afraid that if she was a second late in her reply, William would change his mind and tell her that he was just joking. This was why, when she confirmed that the handsome half-elf was serious about asking her out, she let go of all of her worries and kissed him passionately for 2 minutes. When their lips parted from each other, she buried her face into William's chest and hugged him tight. "Is this a dream?" Wendy asked anxiously. "Am I dreaming?" William gently patted the back of her head and assured her that she was not dreaming. All he asked of her was to keep their relationship a secret for the time being, because he didn't want to make things difficult for his grandpa, James, and the old fox, Lawrence. "I'm sorry," William apologized. "Although you are now my girlfriend, and I will do my best to always be by your side, I'm afraid that I can't declare it publicly. You already know that I still have an agreement with Rebecca, and I still need to give my grandpa and Sir Lawrence some face. I will only be able to give you hugs and kisses when the two of us are behind closed doors. I'm sorry if you find my affection for you lacking when both of us are in the outside world." Wendy kissed William's cheeks as she looked him in the eye to give her reply. "I understand. However, you'd better make up for it when it's just the two of us, all right?" "Okay," William replied. Wendy fidgeted before asking the question that was nagging at her mind. She knew that nobles usually had many wives, and she was afraid to confront William about this matter in fear that he would think that she was a nosy lover. However, in order to prepare herself for the future, she still decided to ask to put her mind at ease. "Will, how many wives do you plan to have? Promise me that you won't get angry at me if I give you my answer." "How many?" Wendy thought that William was going to say a dozen, because some nobles really did have a dozen wives and even secret mistresses that they hid in the shadows. She hoped that William wouldn't go that route because she knew that she was the very jealous type of girl. 9 wives, William said. 9 wives. Wendy gasped. Although the number of women her boyfriend planned to marry was many, it was still better than William having a dozen wives. Wendy grudgingly nodded her head before looking at William with a pout. "Womanizer. Sorry. Will I be the first wife?" Wendy asked. This was an important matter that she had to know. In every household, the position of first wife was important. It had the highest rank among the other wives, and the woman that held this rank was considered to be the groom's main wife. "Yes," William said softly. "You will be my first wife." "Good." Wendy nodded her head and hugged William. "Will, I love you." "I love you too, Wendy." William kissed her forehead and held her tight. Now that he had already made his feelings known, his heart was finally at peace. "If you don't look where you are going to trip," William reminded the daydreaming girl, who seemed to have her head in the clouds as they walked towards the training area for their night order. Wendy looked left and right to ensure that no one was around them. After seeing that the coast was clear, she then moved close to William and whispered words of love in William's ears. The red-headed boy smiled and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek before arriving at their destination. Today was an important day because William planned to ensure that none of his members were going to be affected by the Mindweaver spell that was slowly spreading throughout the academy. Although he felt guilty, he didn't remove the spell inside Est's and Isaac's bodies. The system had already informed him that Carter had distinctly felt the loss of his connection to Wendy when William fed her his lollipop. He didn't want the latter to become more suspicious, so he refrained from openly targeting those that were still affected by the spell. William still didn't know the professor's motives and those of his acquaintances, if he had any, within the Royal Academy. "Everyone line up," William ordered as soon as he arrived at the training grounds. "Today, I will give all of you a special treat for all of your hard work." He then took out a few pouches from his storage ring and handed them to his officers. "Each of you takes 1 lollipop," William said in a commanding tone. "This is your reward for all of your hard work. Now, all of you eat it before we start today's training." Although everyone felt confused why their commander was suddenly distributing a snack for everyone, none of them complained. Each of them stuck the lollipops inside their mouths and began to eat it. The system had informed him ahead of time that there had been a few members of his Night Order that had been affected by the Mind Weaver spell. So, it's concentrated in the magic division, William thought. Affirmative. Fortunately, the fourth years seemed to be untouched by the effect of the Mind Weaver spell. It seems that Professor Carter has only targeted the first-year deletes up to the third-year students of the Magic Division. William nodded in understanding. He thinks that those without magic power are useless, so he's left the Martial Division alone, William mused. Also, the Spirit Division has very strong awareness in their sea of consciousness. They would immediately detect a spell that tried to invade their minds, causing them to conduct an investigation. Although he was an enemy, William had to admire Carter's meticulous planning. Now, all that was left for him to do was uncover the professor's agenda. As long as he was able to know it, he would be able to stop it. William's gaze scanned the members of his Night Order with a serious expression. He wouldn't allow anyone to take control of the organization that he had built from scratch, for they were the sword and shield that would protect the Hellan Kingdom from those who wished to harm it. Meanwhile, at the borders of the Hellan Kingdom, a legion of hippogriffs flew in a battle formation as they entered the borders of their allied kingdom. They had already been informed beforehand of the upcoming war between the Hellan Kingdom and the two dynasties that were just outside their borders. Because of this, they had been very vigilant during their travels and had been on high alert ever since. In the middle of the battle formation was a flying carriage pulled by a blade wyvern. This wyvern was a centennial beast and boasted incredibly high fighting abilities. Just like its name suggested, this wyvern specialized in physical combat and its whole body was as hard as adamantium. Its beak and wings were razor-sharp and could easily split steel armor into two. It was one of the protectors that ensured Princess Sidonie's safety from anyone who wished her harm. Inside the carriage, the third princess of Frisia glanced at the scenery outside the carriage window. She had visited the Hellan Kingdom a few years ago, and she found it to be a strong kingdom that equaled their own. Although she was not interested in politics, she still studied the history and current situation of the three kingdoms that were outside the borders of Frisia. Her reason for doing this was simple. She was looking for a candidate that might help her understand the true meaning of love. A love that was strong enough to overcome the power of seduction that had been with her from the day she was born. Currently, her followers had reported a few interesting individuals that appeared in the Hellan Kingdom. When she browsed the contents of the list, one particular name stood out from the rest. Name: William von Ainsworth. Race: half-elf. Age: 14. Magic power: none. Spiritual power: none. Physical fitness: A. Potential: A. Assessment overview: excellent physical prowess, but no magic power. Recommended to be placed under the Martial Class Division. Currently the youngest Knight Commander in the history of the Hellan Kingdom. According to the reports, his fighting abilities are either at the peak of the silver rank, or in the initial stages of the gold rank. He wears a slave collar on his neck. There is no information on who his master is. Pros: a half-elf, so his looks are very pleasing to the eyes. Holds a high position due to being a Knight Commander of the Angorian War Sovereign. Cons: has no magic power. Has no spirit power. Very narcissistic. He calls a goat his mama. A slave. A slave and a Knight Commander at the same time. Princess Sidonie mused. Now, this is something that I have to see for myself. I wonder, will he be able to resist my charm, or will he be like the rest that would happily kneel and kiss my feet with infatuated smiles on their faces? Chapter 276, Conquest of the Southern Continent. Silver Moon Continent. Finally, the time has come. A middle-aged elf looked at the elven battleships anchored at the port with his hands behind his back. Patriarch, the representatives of the Saleh, Nasir, Rees, and Iroan clans have arrived. Good. Let's go. Yes, Patriarch. The middle-aged man met the representatives of the different clans at a villa overlooking the ocean. There, the teenage elves looked at the flagships that floated on the water with determined expressions on their faces. When the middle-aged elf arrived, all of them stood at attention and pressed their fists against their chests in greeting. All hail the great elder! Be at ease, let's start the meeting. The middle-aged man sat on a raised chair while the other elves sat on theirs. This is an important mission that I will be assigning to all of you, young prodigies of the proud elven clans of the Silver Moon continent, the middle-aged man said in a confident tone. This mission will be dangerous, but the rewards are equally high. Everyone's gazes were locked on the middle-aged man's face as they digested every word that he said. The patriarchs of their respective clans didn't tell them anything. All they said was that the geniuses of their bloodline would undertake a mission for the glory of the entire elven race. The middle-aged man scanned the eager faces of the young elves and nodded with approval. Your mission is the conquest of the southern continent, the middle-aged man explained. Once you arrive there, you will find that the 4 kingdoms will be ripe for the picking. I want all of you, in the fastest possible time, to subjugate them in one fell swoop. The one that will oversee this mission will be my grandson, Elador. The middle-aged man made a gesture and a handsome elf with blonde hair and green eyes walked towards him. From all angles, Elador looked like a young man in his late teens. He was radiating a charm and charisma that made the young ladies among the elves look at him with great interest. As I mentioned earlier, he will be the commander of this operation. I expect all of you to obey his orders, for I believe that he is more than capable enough to lead all of you in this great undertaking. The middle-aged man continued his speech. The other clans are unaware of this mission, and I would like to keep it that way. Now, go. Capture the southern continent and make it the new territory of the elves. Gone are the days when our brethren are hunted down to be turned as slaves. It is now our time to turn humans into slaves. The elves will finally end our 100 years of silence and begin our conquest of the human lands. May the goddesses of the moon bless us all. May the goddesses of the moon bless us all. Central Continent. A man with graying hair stood on top of a pyramid, overlooking the young warriors that had gathered from all over his empire. He had already been alerted that the war in the southern continent was about to begin, and it was now time to take a share of the conflict. His name was Leonidas, the great emperor of the Creter Empire. A force that not many dared to offend in the southern continent. It was well known for its military might that had brought many nations to their knees and made them part of its vast empire. Just like the 4 kingdoms of the southern continent, the Creter Empire was one of the 8 overlords of the central continent. Being one of the top 8 factions in a continent that was 20 times bigger than the southern continent, proved how formidable it was. Go with haste, and reach the shores of the southern continent in a month's time, the great emperor of the Creter Empire ordered. It's time to stake a claim on distant shores. Conquer them in the name of the Creter Empire. Capture those who submit and kill those who oppose us. All of you are the proud warriors of our empire. Glory to Creter! Glory to Creter! The young warriors raised their weapons in unison. Make my granddaughter the queen of the southern continent. Great Emperor Leonidas ordered. Let them know the might of our empire. Glory to Creter! Zagarl Ranath, the demon commander and Carter's direct superior, gathered his forces. Only 10 days remained before the inter-division battle in the Hellan Royal Academy was to occur. Carter's reports were very positive and it made him look forward to the great harvest that they would have in a few days' time. He was currently making his final preparations to bring back the broodmares that Carter had ensnared in the academy. Commander Zagarl wouldn't be participating in the retrieval operation, because he was guarding their borders against the persistent invasion from the Dark Elves who had, for some unknown reason, broken off their alliance. To this day, Commander Zagarl had no idea what the dark-skinned race was thinking. All he knew was that the other forces within the demon continent were also looking forward to the aftermath of the conflict between the two sides. Because of this, he had assigned his right hand to oversee the mission personally to ensure its success. Their plan was very simple. Enter the southern continent through the hidden teleport gate that they had built long ago, and connect to Carter's makeshift two-way dimensional gate within the academy. They would help Carter conduct a massacre, but their main role was to capture the young ladies to bring back the demon continent. It would be a blitzkrieg attack that would last for less than half an hour before they returned to the demon continent in haste. In order to facilitate the teleport gates, the demon race had prepared a tenth of the magic crystals that they had stored over the years. That was a lot of resources, so their mission mustn't fail at all cost. Aside from young ladies of the magic division, the demons would also capture the ladies from the spirit division. What the demon race needed were warriors that would be born with magic and spirit power. They already had strong bodies, so taking captives from the martial division would just be a waste of their time. 10,000 demon warriors. This was the number that Commander Zagarl had gathered for this massive undertaking. Their accomplices in the Hellan Kingdom would create a barrier around the academy to prevent reinforcements from getting in their way. Commander Zagarl was very confident with this plan, so he wasn't worried about the results. All that he was worried about was that the demon warriors would accidentally break the girls once they were brought back to their domain. Unlike demons, human women were more delicate and prone to injuries. This was why he had repeated over and over again that anyone who dared to indulge themselves during the mission would be killed on the spot. This was the only way to prevent the unnecessary loss of broodmares that would give birth to the next generation of demons that held powerful abilities. What he didn't know was that his trusted agent within the Royal Academy had had a change of heart and formulated his own plan as well. Although Carter still felt loyal to the demon race, the temptation of the divinity inside William's body was too much for him to ignore. Because of this, there would be slight deviations to the demonic invasion that Commander Zagarl thought was already in the bag. Chapter 277, Guests from the Kingdom of Frisia Part 1. The Crown Prince of the Hellan Kingdom looked at the mirror with a serious expression. Behind him, several of his aides were holding different ceremonial clothes, all of which were made from the finest materials, and made by the best tailors of the kingdom. "Those clothes look perfect on you, Your Highness," Prince Lionel's right-hand man said with admiration. "Are you sure?" Prince Lionel turned his head in an anxious manner. "Will this really be good, or should I change clothes once again?" "Your Highness, believe me when I say that your clothes are perfect. There's no need to change anything." Prince Lionel's right-hand man was doing his best to keep the smile on his face from breaking. The prince had already spent 2 hours in front of the mirror to find the most appropriate clothes he could wear in order to receive the special guests that would be arriving in a few hours. The Crown Prince had always been confident in whatever he did. However, since the special guest that would be arriving was the love of his life, he wanted to look more presentable than he usually did in order to impress her. "Just know that if you lied to me, I'll have your head cut off," Prince Lionel said in a serious manner. "Do I make myself clear?" "Why yes, Your Highness," the man stuttered as he did his best to prevent his body from trembling all over. After looking at the mirror one last time, Prince Lionel left his room to join the delegation that would be welcoming the third princess of the Kingdom of Frisia into the Hellan Kingdom. "Hey? We are to mobilize and escort a VIP guest that just arrived at our border," William asked with a frown. "Can't the other Knight Commander do it in our place? We also have the Griffin Brigade. There's no need for my Knight Order to participate in this welcoming ceremony." "Commander, this is an order from the king," the messenger from the castle stated. "The Knight Order of Gladiolus is more of a land-based unit, they only have a handful flying mounts at their disposal. Also, the Griffin Brigade is the natural enemy of hippogriffs. We can't possibly send them because it might cause unnecessary conflicts between the magical beasts." William scratched his head because he had to admit that the messenger's words held some truth in them. In the end, he reluctantly agreed to the request and gathered the members of his Knight Order that were given flying mounts. "Half an hour ago, the king gave me a direct order," William said as he faced his subordinates. "The third princess of Frisia has already entered our airspace and has requested an escort from our kingdom. Because of this, we will be leaving in an hour to meet them. Make your last-minute preparations and meet me at the training field in less than an hour. Dismissed. The members of the Anglo-Ryan War Sovereign hurriedly went to their mounts that were currently staying at the special stables that were awarded to them by the Academy. All the magical beasts including the Griffin, Lionheart, and Conrad's Wyvern, were stationed there. Priscilla was surprised by William's announcement. Soon, a very sweet smile appeared on her face as she hurried back to the Solaris dormitory to prepare for the escort mission. What a pain, William said as he scratched his head. Don't be like that, Wendy commented from the side. Aren't you curious about the third princess of the kingdom of Frisia? Many say that she is a peerless beauty. No matter how beautiful she is, I bet she won't be as beautiful as my master, William replied with confidence. I can't make a comeback if you put it that way. Wendy pouted. Indeed, Celine was very beautiful and, as a girl, Wendy felt inferior to her. However, William had already told Wendy many times that she didn't need to compare herself to other beautiful women. William would always say, "For me, you are already very beautiful. That's why, you don't need to feel insecure in regards to others. Even my ex-fiancée, Rebecca, doesn't hold a candle against you." Although Rebecca was more beautiful than her, Wendy could genuinely feel that, for William, she was really more beautiful than Rebecca, which made the blonde beauty overcome some of her insecurities. However, when Wendy asked William what he thought of his master, Celine, the half-elf would suddenly have a devilish look on his face and simply answer, "Someday, I will give my master a good spanking. That will be repayment for all the suffering I've experienced under her hand." Wendy tried to ask more about what these sufferings were, but William would silence her question with a hug, or a kiss. Clearly, the red-headed boy didn't want to share his experiences and Wendy decided not to pry any further. Less than an hour later, William and the rest of his Knight Order had gathered in the training field. William's personal flying carriage that held the insignia of the Anglo-Ryan Knight Order was also there for him to ride in. Like always, the one that would be pulling the carriage was Dave and his partner, Lionheart. This time, Priscilla summoned her alpha hippogriff and asked William to personally give her the honor of leading their Knight Order to meet their special guests. The half-elf readily agreed because he wasn't too interested in meeting the third princess of their allied kingdom. "Commander, I can see them now," Dave reported. "Carry on," William ordered. Wendy was currently taking a nap, with her head on his lap. William looked at the scenery outside of the flying carriage, while firmly holding the girl's waist so that she wouldn't fall off of the couch. Those accompanying him inside the carriage had already gotten used to this scene, and none of them said anything about it, including Ian, who was also looking outside the carriage window to prevent himself from feeling envious of the girl lying on William's lap. After the trial at the Peak of Enlightenment, Ian had unlocked the seal on his body to a certain extent that allowed him to harness the powers that had been sealed for just as long. He didn't say anything to EST and his brother because he was afraid that the two would get jealous of him. Still, what's the point of having this power if I can't use it out in the open? Ian thought as the entourage from the kingdom of Frisia appeared in front of them. After sending their greeting, the members of the Anglo-Ryan War Sovereign spread out and joined the flying formation towards the capital of the Hellan kingdom. The aerial cavaliers of the kingdom of Frisia looked at these young knights with surprise and admiration. They could tell that their escorts were still teenagers and it made them feel very complicated, seeing them riding hippogriffs alongside them. In their kingdom, only those that had done great deeds for their homeland would gain the honor of riding on the backs of hippogriffs. These magical beasts were the main fighting force of their kingdom and not many were allowed to ride them willy-nilly. There was even a teenager that was riding on top of a wyvern. Looks like the second knight commander of the Hellan kingdom is not just for show, the knight captain of the aerial cavaliers from the kingdom of Frisia thought. It was not only him. Almost every one of his subordinates was thinking the same thing. How rude, one of Princess Sidonie's attendants, who was riding inside her flying carriage complained. Shouldn't that knight commander personally come to offer his greetings to our princess? How come he's staying inside his flying carriage and not even making his presence known? HMP. I guess being a knight commander and being a gentleman are two different things, another attendant complained. We came here to aid them in the war and yet they don't treat us like VIP guests. Princess Sidonie frowned when she heard her attendants, but she didn't say anything. Deep inside, she was looking forward to meeting the knight commander of the Anglo-Ryan war sovereign. The reports she received about him were all very interesting, and she wanted to catch a glimpse of the narcissistic half-elf that was said to have hair that resembled a blazing fire. Unfortunately, the said half-elf had other things in his mind, and they were not even about the third princess. How come Carter still hasn't made a move in all this time? William thought. He clearly knows that Wendy had been freed from his control, so why isn't he sending Charlotte to investigate? Something doesn't feel right. The professor hadn't done anything suspicious as of late. Most of the time, he just stays inside his room meditating. He even stopped making those candies, and simply does his duty as the teacher of the academy. Perhaps he is waiting for something. What do you think? I don't have sufficient data to answer the host's question. William sighed internally. Carter's silence was making him feel anxious. It was as if there was a sharp guillotine that was hanging over his head, waiting for the right time to end his life. I hope that I'm just being too paranoid. William sighed in his heart. I have a nagging feeling that something very bad is going to happen inside the academy soon. Chapter 278, Guests from the Kingdom of Frisia Part 2. Welcome, Princess Sidonie, to the Hellan Kingdom, King Noah said with a smile the moment Princess Sidonie disembarked from her flying carriage. It is our pleasure to be here, Your Majesty, Princess Sidonie replied and did a curtsy. The silver veil that hid her face fluttered gently in the wind, but it still kept her face from being seen by anyone in the vicinity. Greetings, Princess, Prince Lionel bowed his head respectfully. He wasn't able to stop himself from making his presence known to the lady of his dreams. It has been a while since you've visited our kingdom. It would be my honor to be your tour guide during your stay in our humble kingdom. King Noah's face remained calm, but there was a slight hint of disapproval in his eyes. However, this disapproval didn't last long because Lionel's action was a normal thing for a prince of the kingdom to do. Thank you for your offer, Your Highness, Sidonie replied. However, the journey has been long and if possible, I want to rest for a few days before seeing the attractions of the Hellan Kingdom. I hope you don't mind my selfishness. Not at all, Princess. It was me who had forgotten how to be a good host. Please, allow me to escort you to your quarters, Prince Lionel bowed apologetically. This time, Princess Sidonie nodded her head and acted how a proper guest should act. King Noah nodded internally and didn't get in the way of Lionel's initiative. He was not stupid. With a single glance, he could tell that his son was smitten with the third princess of Frisia. In fact, a year ago, he had asked him to play matchmaker and propose that Princess Sidonie be wed to him in a marriage alliance. The king of the Hellan Kingdom thought that this was a good idea, however, the recent events that had happened inside his kingdom had prevented him from putting this proposal into motion. Maybe this is a good opportunity for the two of them to get closer, Noah thought as he made a gesture for his aides to take care of the aerial knights from Frisia. Since their purpose for coming was to be their reinforcements, King Noah prepared the best rooms for them as well as the best accommodations for their magical beasts. While his aides were busy guiding their guests, King Noah walked towards the flying carriage that belonged to his second knight commander, who hadn't even poked his head out to greet the princess of their allied kingdom. King Noah had conflicting feelings towards William because he was also someone that EST praised highly. As a father, he could see the signs that indicated that his son was very attached to the half-elf and hoped that it was just due to admiration. Commander, the king is making his way here, Dave reported. How can't he just leave me alone? William grumbled as he gently lifted Wendy's head from his lap and used a soft cushion as replacement to allow the sleeping beauty to continue sleeping. He then stepped out of the carriage to meet the king of the kingdom with a smile on his face. Greetings, Your Majesty, William said as he placed his right fist over his chest. I have accomplished the mission that you decreed upon me. You did well, Commander William, King Noah replied. I'm sorry for calling you out of the blue and asking you for an escort mission. I hope you don't mind the inconveniences I caused you. There was no inconvenience, Your Majesty, William replied with a smile. As long as it is for the kingdom, I will do my best to meet your expectations. King Noah eyed the young half-elf with a critical gaze. There had been many nobles that had voiced their criticism for allowing a slave to hold such a prestigious position as a knight commander within their kingdom. However, King Noah ignored them all because William had proven himself very capable for his age. He understood that the nobles were only whining because a slave suddenly held the authority to punish them if he found them guilty of a crime. This was a deterrence that knight commanders possessed, and they were afraid that William would use his influence to bring them down. After the incident with Kingsley of the Misty Sect, the Rhodes family had been very low-key as of late. In the past, they had been very domineering since they were one of the dukedoms of the kingdom. All of that changed when William knocked the living lights out of Kingsley and made the Rhodes family more subservient to the orders of the king. Lord William, are you getting along with the head prefect of the magic division? King Noah inquired. Est? Yes. The two of us get along very well, William replied. I treat him as a very close friend of mine. I see King Noah remained calm on the surface, but deep inside he felt anxious. There have been rumors flying around that you are in a relationship with Miss Wendy. How much of that is true? William only smiled, but said nothing else. King Noah felt a headache incoming because he understood William's silence. As a king of the kingdom, he already knew how to read the unspoken words between a king and his retainer. William had silently admitted his relationship with Wendy, and King Noah didn't know how to feel about it. The only thing he could do was to pat William's shoulder and whisper something in his ears before walking back towards the palace. The half-elf looked at the king with a stiff smile on his face. He didn't understand what the king meant when he said the words. If you make her cry, I'll personally whip you 100 times. Finally, that nosy prince is gone. Princess Sidonie's attendant exclaimed the moment Prince Lionel left her room. The prince stayed for over an hour and chatted with Princess Sidonie about the current affairs in Frisia. Prince Lionel had been sorely tempted to snatch the veil covering his beloved's face so he could admire her beauty up close. However, he didn't want the princess to hate him, so he fought this impulse while keeping a smile plastered on his face. If not for Princess Sidonie hinting that she was very tired and wanted to rest, Prince Lionel might have stayed longer. Fortunately, the Crown Prince knew when to advance and retreat, so he decided to take a step back and allow the princess to finally rest. Before she left the kingdom of Frisia, the king gave her several powerful artifacts to suppress her powers. This allowed her to safely interact with King Noah and the rest of the representatives of the Hellan kingdom. Still, she felt a certain dislike for the Crown Prince of the Hellan kingdom. He was like the other men that had pursued her because they were charmed by her powers. If Princess Sidonie wanted to, she could make all of them do whatever she wanted, but she chose not to. However, there was someone that didn't like to live the life of a pacifist. Where's the fun in making ordinary men grovel at our feet? A voice sounded from inside Princess Sidonie's head. Sidonie, let's hurry to find a man that can awaken the power inside you. Don't forget our deal. 4 years from now, if you still haven't found the man that would make you know the meaning of love, you will switch places with me. I'll keep my promise. Why are you in a hurry, Morgana? It's because I don't want you to become a late bloomer. Is that the only reason? No. The real reason is because I am bored. Come on, why don't you swap with me for an hour or two? I promise I'll behave. Princess Sidonie sighed. She didn't know when or how it happened, but on her 10th birthday, a voice started speaking to her inside her head. This was also about the time that her powers had awakened and almost caused a disaster inside their kingdom. For Princess Sidonie, Morgana was an overprotective older sister that would nag at her whenever she acted timid in front of other people. Sometimes, Morgana would forcefully take over her body whenever she was in grave danger and protect her from harm. After living in the same body for many years, Princess Sidonie and Morgana had grown extremely close to each other. Sometimes, when Princess Sidonie didn't want to deal with other people, she would hide inside her sea of consciousness and allow Morgana to take over. Morgana also knew that Princess Sidonie was at the age where she would be interested in the opposite gender. However, the little girl was a romantic type. What she wanted was someone who could love her without being affected by her powers. Because of this, Morgana proposed that whenever Princess Sidonie found a candidate, Morgana would assess the man to see if he was worthy of her little sister. Princess Sidonie agreed to this condition because she knew that Morgana only wanted the best for her. Sadly, all the candidates that Princess Sidonie had chosen succumbed to her powers, even before Morgana could swap with her to assess them. Well, don't give up. We will be staying in this kingdom for some time. Maybe we can find someone among the good-looking guys here. Well, we still have 4 more years before our deadline ends, Princess Sidonie thought. For now, she decided to play along with her older sister and meet the candidates of the Hellan Kingdom that had been listed by her pets that were staying inside the Hellan Kingdom. Chapter 279, I hope that the two of you can meet soon. 3 days before the inter-division battle. Due to the arrival of the third princess of their allied kingdom, King Noah decided to hold a banquet for her and the knights that came to assist them in their time of need. Naturally, all the nobles headed to the capital in order to take part in the festivities. Ironically, all of the students of the Royal Academy were also asked to participate in this event, which made the students that were born commoners very happy. This was a very rare chance to see the nobles and members of the royal family up close, not to mention seeing the third princess of a neighboring kingdom in the flesh. Every student in the academy was excited, except one person. What a pain, William sighed after leaving the conference room of the academy. The half-elf had been suffering anxiety as of late because Carter hadn't been making any suspicious moves since he'd snatched Wendy out from under his nose. He was also feeling guilty about EST and Isaac, who were still under the control of the Mindweaver spell. Because of this, he didn't hesitate to plant trackers on them as well, which cost him 3,000 God points. God points, 2,980. Although the God point expenditure was high, William didn't bat an eye and did it anyway. For him, EST and Isaac were more important than God points. There were times when he had to stop himself from giving them his lollipop in order for the spell to be broken completely, because he was afraid that if he continued, Carter would cease his activities altogether. William wanted to know the professor's goal and if he had other acquaintances that were helping him from the shadows. You have that sad expression on your face again. What's wrong? Wendy asked as she moved towards her boyfriend and gave him a hug. Are you worried about something? Yes, William replied as he hugged her tightly. I am feeling very anxious as of late. Not only that, I am also feeling guilty. Wendy hummed as she gently patted the back of William's head. After becoming William's not-so-secret girlfriend, the blonde beauty had gotten to know that her lover would tell her the things that he wanted her to know. Since William wasn't telling her the reason behind why he was feeling anxious and guilty, she knew that it was not because he didn't want to tell her, but he couldn't. Because of this, she didn't pry any further and just helped him to calm down. I love you, Wendy said as she kissed his lips. I love you too, William replied and kissed her back. Wendy had officially moved into William's room, bringing half of the clothes in her closet with her. Ever since she and William had dreamt about that passionate night in Valhalla, the two's relationship had become much closer than before. Ironically, they would often dream about the continuation of those dreams where the silver-haired William and the adult Wendy would go to the realms of Yggdrasil to protect them from invaders who wished to conquer them. Naturally, aside from fighting, the two would spend intimate moments together. These dreams would often make Wendy's face turn beet red each time she woke up before William, and saw him sleeping next to her. Of course, those intimate adult scenes were restricted to their dreams. William didn't do anything to her, aside from hugs and kisses when both of them were awake. Feeling better? Wendy asked. Much better, William smiled and kissed her forehead. The beautiful blonde then dragged William to the bed in order to talk about their plans for the banquet, which would be held tonight. I heard that the third princess is so beautiful that she has to cover her face with a veil, Wendy said like an auntie who liked gossip. I wonder if the rumors are true. If we go by the script, she would definitely be an earth-shaking beauty that would make all the men fall on their knees and beg for her good graces, William replied. Including you? Wendy inquired. I haven't seen her face, so I can't say for certain. However, there is one thing that I am sure of, William answered with a smug expression on her face. And that is, she will definitely fall in love with me. Wendy pouted and pinched William's waist. Instead of feeling pain, the half-elf just smiled and enjoyed Wendy's jealous action. You're so full of yourself, Wendy wrinkled her nose in annoyance. William pinched his lover's nose with a teasing smile. And that's the reason why you fell in love with me, right? HMP. Wendy pounded William's chest, and the latter only laughed as he caught her fists. The hours passed as the two prepared for the banquet. Although Wendy tried to hide it, she was looking forward to introducing William to her father in a discreet manner at the banquet. She had asked William if it was fine for her parents to know about their relationship. The half-elf had no qualms about informing Wendy's parents because he planned to take this relationship seriously. The only request was that it wouldn't be made public until after his duel with Rebecca was over. Wendy agreed to William's condition and silently apologized to Rebecca inside her heart. Although she knew that Rebecca and William didn't have any feelings for each other, she still felt like a thieving cat that got in the way of her good friend's love relationship. Beautiful, simply beautiful, William praised Wendy after he helped her put on her dress for the party. He was even the one who helped brush her hair and chose the accessories she was going to wear. The half-elf was almost half tempted to not let her go to the banquet and lock her up in his room to prevent other men from looking at her. I bet that you say that to all the girls, Wendy replied in a sarcastic manner, but deep inside she was very happy to be praised by William. Not to all the girls, William corrected her. I only say that to the girls close to my heart. Oh? Aside from me, who else do you call beautiful? My master and a black-haired beauty that is waiting for me to sweep her off her feet. Priscilla. Wendy raised an eyebrow as she looked at the handsome red-headed boy who was wearing the ceremonial black attire of the Anglo-Ryan war sovereign. Not her, William shook his head. Someone that holds my heart close to her chest and thinks about me every single day. What is her name? Val. Wendy tilted her head as she tried to recall the names of the girls that were close to William. Her memory was good, so she easily concluded that she hadn't met the girl named Belle before in her life. Where is she? Wendy asked as she looked straight into William's light green eyes that reflected her image back to her. William sighed before answering Wendy's question. The short reunion with Belle was one of his most precious memories. In a place far from my reach, William answered with a sad expression. He then caressed the side of Wendy's face and looked at her with a serious expression. I hope that the two of you can meet soon. I wish for that as well. Shall we go now? Okay. Wendy nodded her head. William then bent his elbow in a gentlemanly manner to escort the beautiful lady outside the Solaris dormitory, where Dave was waiting for them. They were already an hour late for the party, but William didn't care. For him, this party was just a way to blow off steam and meet Wendy's parents. Although he couldn't publicly announce their relationship, that didn't mean that he wouldn't meet with his girlfriend's parents. William wanted them to know that he was serious in having a relationship with their daughter. Now, whether Wendy's parents would accept him or not, that could only be answered by Wendy's father, Joaquin Armstrong. Chapter 280, The Crown Prince's Jealousy. When they arrived at the banquet, the party was already in full swing. The performers took center stage at the center of the hall, and wowed the crowd with their amazing performances. The moment William's name was announced by the head butler of the palace, all eyes went towards the main entrance to see him. William walked confidently with Wendy by his side. The two of them looked like a perfect couple, which made the ladies and men sigh in admiration. Fortunately, Rebecca wasn't at the party because she had already traveled to the central continent to start her training at the Misty Sect. After their humiliating defeat, that was witnessed by the nobles of the kingdom, the representatives of the Misty Sect left in haste in order to save what little dignity they had left. Unfortunately, even though Rebecca wasn't at the party, Rebecca's grandfather, Lawrence, and her father, Duke Dillion, were there due to the king's summons. Duke Dillion hatefully glared at William, not because he was escorting Wendy at the party, but because he felt that he had been slapped in the face due to the Misty Sect's loss under William's hand. Lawrence, on the other hand, had a calm expression on his face. Originally he was thinking of having a one-on-one talk with William in regards to the rumors that were flying around about his relationship with Wendy. However, he could tell with a glance that the beautiful young lady and the half-elf did have feelings for each other. The old fox sighed in his heart because he knew that William also had his interest at heart since he had not declared their relationship officially. As long as the Knight Commander kept mum about his relationship with Wendy, even though their feelings for each other were obvious for everyone to see, no one could say anything unless William confirmed it himself. William's and Lawrence's gazes met and the two gave each other a brief nod before averting their gazes. It was an understanding between gentlemen, and Lawrence had no qualms with William having Wendy as his secret fiancée. At the table reserved for the special guests of the kingdom, Prince Lionel chatted with Princess Sidonie with a big smile on his face. The third princess did her duty as expected of a princess of a kingdom and tolerated Prince Lionel's mindless chatter. If not for Morgana telling her that the one she was waiting for had arrived, the princess might still be chatting with Prince Lionel about how the hippogriffs give birth to their young. Well, he is indeed a looker. Morgana's voice sounded like a purring cat as Princess Sidonie gazed at the handsome half-elf that had just arrived in the banquet hall. Seeing her attention was diverted from him, Prince Lionel frowned and followed her gaze. When he saw William and the beautiful blonde beauty accompanying him, the frown on the crown prince's face deepened. Of course, this only lasted for a brief moment before it returned to its usual calm expression. He is the youngest knight commander of our kingdom. Prince Lionel took the initiative to introduce William to Princess Sidonie. His name is William von Ainsworth. A country bumpkin and a slave who somehow managed to catch father's attention. Princess Sidonie didn't miss the contempt and ridicule in Prince Lionel's voice when he mentioned William's name. He must have done something exceptional if he was given the position of Knight Commander, Princess Sidonie said to test the waters in order to gain more information from Prince Lionel. If not, he wouldn't be given such an important role at such a young age. Prince Lionel chuckled as he reluctantly nodded his head. This is true. However, only my father knows about this exceptional merit that he did for the kingdom. Lord William was like a mushroom that suddenly popped out of the woodwork and surprised not only me, but all the nobles within our kingdom. Are you interested in him, Princess? The question sounded so harmless, but there was slight tension in the air as Prince Lionel stared at the veil that was blocking his beloved's beautiful face. It is impossible for me not to be interested in such a young prodigy, Princess Sidonie replied. I would be extremely grateful if His Highness would introduce me to your Knight Commander. Of course, Princess. Prince Lionel smiled and nodded his head. As the host, it is our duty to grant the wishes of our esteemed guest. Prince Lionel subtly clenched his fist under the table. His gaze landed on the smiling half-elf in the distance and wished that he could strangle him then and there. For William to be noticed by the lady of his dreams made Prince Lionel jealous beyond compare. He then organized his thoughts to think of a way to humiliate the commander of the Knight Order in front of the princess. That is the only way he could calm the rage in his heart that was fanned by his jealousy. Naturally, Princess Sidonie and Morgana noticed the subtle changes in the crown prince's mannerism. Morgana giggled from within Princess Sidonie's sea of consciousness because she liked to drive the men around her little sister crazy. If not for the fact that she really cared about her, she would have already taken over her body and brought the Hellan kingdom to her knees. Sadly, she couldn't do that. For the time wasn't ripe. Princess Sidonie's full power would only be unlocked the day she came of age, and that was still 2 years away from happening. For now, she decided to just let nature take its course, as Princess Sidonie enjoyed her teenage years under her protection. William, who was completely oblivious of the Crown Prince's jealousy, walked towards the tables that were designated for their night order. He was doing his best not to glance in Carter's direction, who was seated among the staff of the Royal Academy. The professor had finally broken his isolation and participated in the banquet for the guests of their kingdom. Since his senses were honed in the professor's direction, he felt Carter's stare directed at him and Wendy. William didn't know what the professor was thinking at this point in time because the system was not omnipotent enough to do that. It could only monitor what Carter saw, heard, and the fluctuation of his emotions. Right now, Carter was eyeing William like a wolf that had found its prey. He was observing the boy's expression and every gesture and imprinting them into his subconscious mind. That way, when he finally took control of William's body, he would be able to act the way he did and fool everyone around him. 3 more days, Carter thought. 3 more days and I will have a new vessel. If possible, Carter wished that the days would pass quickly, so that the day of the inter-division battle would arrive sooner. The plan that he had painstakingly concocted from the shadows had already been laid out. He had already placed a subtle command on those that were under his spell, and it would activate on the day of the welcoming ceremony. Carter's plan was really simple. Use the people that were close to William as the knife that would stab him from the back, and force him to make a difficult choice. A choice that would make the half-elf regret that he didn't kill Carter sooner.